Welcome to Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. You are going to hear the stories from the eclectic life of a guy who is a professional counselor, a family man, a SWAT team chaplain, outdoor enthusiast, a guy involved with ropes, 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, a chaotic Jedi, and who is a recipient of an honorary doctorate from the University of Adversity. Using these stories, we take the facts lead to concepts, and from the concepts we make a variety of life applications. Just a caveat about the facts. Most of the time we will tell you the facts just the way it happened, but once in a while we'll give you the facts the way other people remember how it happened, and that usually includes a tablespoon of embellishment. No harm is meant, just good, clean fun for educational purposes. Please subscribe and share this with your friends or your enemies. It might help them to be better people if they listen. As always, we thank you for keeping up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. Introducing the Bible degree with digital ministry. Paul used the marketplace and the synagogue to reach an expanded audience. We have access to the internet and social media. I once heard it said that when McDonald's introduced the drive-through window, they did not change the Big Mac, only how it was delivered. Faulkner University is now offering a new digital ministry track for their Bible degree. Faulkner's degree provides training in understanding and teaching the gospel, alongside training that will allow students to create quality digital content. Opportunities for evangelism in the digital spaces is unlimited, and this is innovative ministry education for our contemporary culture. One of the instructors is a 2-time Emmy-winning former ESPN designer. Members of the Church of Christ could be eligible for the full tuition Jack Zorn Scholarship in order to pursue this special area of study. For more information, contact admissions at faulkner.edu. That is admissions at faulkner.edu. Faulkner University is a digital partner with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. TKM Incorporated in Moss, Tennessee is a construction company that specializes in erosion control, seeding, and soil, hydroseeding, hydromulch, minor excavation, and silt fence. They also provide traffic control and construction signs. Their business is keeping people safe, but their passion, their mission, is they wish that all men could be saved. TKM has adopted the nickname the King's Men because as they serve you, they also serve the King. If they could provide any of their services for you, please contact them at 931-243-3958. That is 931-243-3958. Or you can contact them on the net at tkminc2001 at twlakes.net. That is tkminc2001 at twlakes.net. TKM Incorporated is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. We are still just throwing rocks at each other. The old arrowheads that I have found, they're just rocks, but they're rocks shaped into a point and thrown, quote unquote, thrown from a bow. A metal arrowhead or a metal spear tip is a synthesized rock. It's formed metal sharpened into a point. A bullet is really a small rock that flies faster than the speed of sound. Yeah, we're still just throwing rocks at each other. I am an amateur civilian gun handler. But because of my involvement with the police and some of the stories that I tell, I'm often asked questions by new or would-be gun owners because they think I'm some kind of an expert, which I'm not. The advice that I give new people is simply this. Well, obviously, one needs to learn how to shoot the thing. But while you're shooting, shoot while moving and shoot at things that are moving. My brother used balloons on 8-inch strings to teach Brack and Jewel how to shoot. Then your expectation is I'm going to be shooting at something that's not paper target steel. And the next thing I tell people is simply to do this, to simulate failure drills and reloading. If you pull that trigger and that thing goes click instead of bang, then you're holding a very expensive, very ineffective hammer. The very first time I ever went to the range with a SWAT team, they were called the SRT team in those days. And we went to the range on the Arsenal, and it was shared by NASA and HPD. We now have a very modern, state-of-the-art range that the city shares with the FBI. But in those days, this was a very small 25-yard range with a couple of shooting stalls and a big dirt berm and a little shed that you could clear and clean your pistols under. Well, they invited me on a training day to go shoot with them, and I accepted, and they told me to bring my gun. I showed up with an inverted Sonny Crockett shoulder holster sporting a Ruger GP100 357 Magnum, complete with 2 speed loaders. All the gentlemen on the team had all black Beretta 92F pistols that held 15 rounds in the magazine and 1 in the pipe. 16 rounds every time they bring the gun up. I've just always been a wheel gun guy. You don't have to do a lot of maintenance with it. There's no feed jam. There's no stovepipes. It can't be out of battery if the barrel is pressed against the body of something that you're intending to ventilate. But I learned a lesson that day about speed and efficiency. I watched with amazement as these guys ran through the obstacles and fired from kneeling, prone, and barricaded positions. Rodney Baker was going through this little simulation, and he had slid underneath like a bench or a barricade, and he had a malfunction. And I'll never forget the fluid efficiency with which he did the tap, rack, bang drill to resolve the problem. It probably more accurately should be called tap, rack, assess. Some people in the gun world talk about a type 1 or a type 2 or a type 3 malfunction. My friend Jason Brightwell eloquently described it as failure to feed or fail to fire. He said, if it goes click, it's saying simply fix me or feed me. So in the tap, rack, bang, it simply means that you forcibly seat the magazine with the palm of your hand. And then Rodney rolled the gun over and racked the slide to free the misfed round. And then the bang is pretty obvious. Once you've seated the magazine and cleared the jam, you start pulling the trigger again, and then it should fire. But Rodney didn't roll his gun over and then fire. He fired while his gun was still inverted and fired it as he rolled it back into shooting position. You aren't in Kansas anymore, Toto, I thought to myself. And I'm a decent shot. I'm pseudo proficient with firearms, but as I said, I am a civilian, read that, amateur gun handler. And this is my first time ever to be in the company of professionals and gunfighters. All these men have been baptized by fire in the 10-hour standoff at the Kettle restaurant where Officer Billy Killian had been shot. I remember one time we were teaching a SWAT school years and years ago, and in one of the breaks, one of the young students asked Jim Goins. He said, "Jim, where did you go to SWAT school?" And Jim just calmly replied, "The Kettle." I forget the course of fire that we had on this particular day, but it was a move and shoot obstacle course, and it required more rounds than my 6-shooter and 2 speed loaders, total of 18 rounds, would accommodate. I think I needed 50 rounds to complete this course of fire. Well, I started running through the little obstacles and kneeling and rolling and ducking, and the first 6 shots went fine. I rolled the cylinder out of the pistol. I held it with my 2 middle fingers going through the frame and my thumb holding the other side. I dumped the spent brass, dropped the speed loader in position, twisted the little handle release, slapped the wheel back into the gun, and fired 6 more. Once I'd fired those 6 shots, my gun was empty again, and I repeated the earlier process. Well, those 2 reloads went fine. There was no problem. I had become adept at this particular exercise because I carried this little pistol a lot and shot it a lot. But I'd never shot in a combat situation, real or simulated. And as I progressed through the first 18 rounds, it then became time to reload for the 3rd time. And this time I was going to do it without the aid of speed loaders. Now I'm holding this pistol through the frame and rotating the cylinder with my thumb and two middle fingers while I add single bullets to the chambers. The guy who ran the range in those days was SWAT legend Ivan Fellow, and he stood over me and emptied 16 rounds out of that Beretta as I knelt behind a barricade and did my best to reload. He shot 16 rounds before I could load 6. In addition to that little lesson, several things happened that day that were memorable. The first was the speed and accuracy of these guys. Another was that when we were standing under this little thing cleaning our guns, I was lamenting the inefficiency of my revolver, and Mike Weeks said, "Well, I wouldn't want you shooting at me, preacher." And I took that as a grand compliment. Another thing that happened that was, I guess, not of import but memorable was one of the young guys dropped a piece of equipment. I don't know if it was a magazine or a spring or something. Anyway, the thing popped off the table and hit the floor, and he swore. And Ivan Fellow, the aforementioned HPD legend and OG SWAT guy, rebuked him, and he yelled, "Blankety blank, the bleep bleep chaplain is standing right there. Why don't you watch your blank bleep mouth?" Everybody stared at him, and he never even seemed to notice that he'd used more curse words than the young man who dropped the equipment. I'm not convinced to this day that he didn't do it on purpose. The second thing I'll never forget is as we drove into the range and we got out of the car, and on the side of this little equipment shed was this placard. It was this little silhouette target. And beside the silhouette target were these simulated holes representing bullet strikes. And the caption simply read, "You can't miss fast enough to catch up." Another one of my friends put it this way: it's not the first shot that wins a gunfight, it's the first hit. You see, if you're doing it wrong, doing more of it or doing it faster won't really fix things. If our words are wrong, saying more of them, saying more of the same thing, saying them faster or saying them louder, meaner, or with more conviction won't change the fact that what we are saying is indeed wrong, unkind, cruel, or untrue. Being busier doesn't mean we're more productive. Doing more doesn't make us effective. You see, the blend between efficiency and effectiveness is the key to success. You got to be efficient and you've got to be effective. You can't be efficient without being effective, or you're just wasting time. It's called dynamic inactivity sometimes. In productivity, efficiency blended with effectiveness is what makes success, but also in perfecting a skill. You see, this idea of 10,000 hours or 10,000 reps for mastery, it has to be modified, because if you do 10,000 reps and you do them with intensity, efficiency, and quality of repetitions, might even change that number to less than 10,000. But if you did 10,000 reps and you didn't have the proper intensity, the proper efficiency, and the proper quality, then those 10,000 reps aren't going to matter anyway. 30 kipping pull-ups are not the same as 8 textbook, perfect form chest to bar pull-ups. When I'm exercising, I stop all of my reps when my form degrades. Doing the same thing the same way and expecting different results has often been used as a definition for insanity. And maybe it's not insanity, maybe it's just delusional thinking or just flat out denial. But doing the wrong thing more often or faster is absolutely a recipe for disaster. You can't be mean enough to repair a broken relationship. You can't be self-centered enough to make other people love you. You can't be cruel enough to feel good about yourself. You can't devalue others enough to become important or special. You can't make enough excuses to abdicate responsibility. You can't lie enough for what is untrue to become true. And it really doesn't matter if people believe it or not. Believing something enough doesn't make it true either. And you can't judge other people's faults enough to become righteous. Insight is the ability to realize what our goal is and then being able to evaluate whether our strategy is or is not working. And if it's not working, if it's not getting us what we want, if it's not getting us where we want to be, then it's time to slow down, to stop, and change. I talked with a guy one time. He said he evaluates everything he does with a KISS strategy, or a KSS. K stands for keep, S stands for start, and S stands for stop. So look at what you're doing. Look at what you're doing in a relationship. Look at what you're doing in your Christianity. Look at what you're doing in your fitness. Look at what you're doing in business. And K, keep doing what's working. Start doing what needs to be done that you haven't been doing. And then look at what's not working and decide, hey, this isn't working and I'm going to stop. It's not getting me what I want. It's not healthy for me. It's not good for me. I've got to stop missing. Because after all, you can't miss fast enough to catch up. Using the tool of shortwave radio, World Christian Broadcasting literally covers the world every day with the gospel. They use 2 large curtain antennas. One is located in Anchor Point, Alaska, and the other in Madagascar. They send out messages that are recorded at their international home in Franklin, Tennessee. They make available 40 hours of broadcast every day. The broadcasts are made in English, Chinese, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, English for Africa, and Arabic. They would love for your group to visit them. You can bring your ladies group, your youth group, or your men's group. Just give them a call at 615-371-8707, 615-371-8707, or you can go to 3W's.worldchristian.org, find the Donate Here button, and make a financial contribution to support this work that literally covers the world every day with the gospel. World Christian Broadcasting, in cooperation with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure.